So this review was actually supposed to be up before my rant about nothing, but whenever I shoot these videos, I always do a bit of a sound test to make sure that my microphone's working properly. And when I was deleting the sound test, I accidentally left the sound test alone and deleted the review. So I didn't realize that until after, and I decided to screw it and just continue on with the other one. So I was requested to review the fic of Maids and Mistresses by Unahim. Unahim. I have trouble saying that name, but I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. Super Optimistic Emo requested it, so I read the story. For those of you who do not know, Unahim is one of my favorite authors, based solely on the fact that he or she, I actually don't know which, I don't keep up to date with people's blogs and stuff, or if they're male or female, it really doesn't matter in my personal opinion. But they're, I'm just going to probably refer to him as a he, though, just because it's a guess. So he wrote Shirley's Garden, which some of you may know is my favorite grimdark of all time, grimdark being one of my favorite genres, and it's also tied with 7 Days in Heaven as my favorite fic of all time. So I almost expect great things every time I read one of his stories, and I'm surprised I haven't read Maids and Mistresses yet, or so I thought, and then I remembered that I had skimmed through it before as I started reading it. I think I read the first couple chapters. The only thing is I went back to the story and I read his little description, and he said the story has Klopp in it, and some of you may know I'm not opposed to Klopp, but I find that I have an issue with it when it becomes the driving central force of the story. So when he says that it has Klopp in it, I was kind of worried that he had fallen prey to the kind of the demographic of people who writes Klopp fics based on the fact that they're I wouldn't say Klopp fics are easy to write, but they don't really need to be too don't have to have too much depth to them. Something that a grimdark would, or any other kind of story would usually have to have a lot, or at least some of it would have to have some kind of depth in it in order to be considered a good. While most Klopp fics can just skim by on Klopp, because it's I don't know. I guess people who really like that sort of thing don't mind a simplistic story not getting in the way of their porn. Whatever. I'm not one to judge. So as I was reading it, he actually said he doesn't see this as a Klopp fic, though. He sees this as a story with Klopp elements, and I can respect that. I've read a few stories in my time where it's a story that has sex or Klopp whatever in it for one reason or another. So I started reading. Actually, first I looked at his chapter list, and this is where I started to get worried. Was that when I saw he included non-Klopp versions of all his chapters, which I thought was a nice touch, especially for people who don't like it. But when I looked at the first one, the first Klopp chapter was 929 words, and the non-Klopp version was 200 and some. Now that's a 700-word variation in the sense that Klopp took up most of the chapter. And that's what concerned me. The fact that, is this really going to be as ignorant, or not ignorant, but is it really going to be not as reliant on Klopp as he said? Because a story could not have that sort of thing for a couple chapters, but it could still be very reliant on it, in the sense that it takes up most of the driving plot. So that's what concerned me as I went into this. If you guys want to check it out for yourself, of course, links down below. Check it out first. Come back to me. We'll talk about it. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm drinking 5 Alive. It's really sugary. I don't know why I drink it. So, hopefully, after I'm done talking about, fruit drinks, you guys have read the story and you've come back. So, talking about the story, that was a ride, and it didn't really go the way that I expected it to, in all honesty. Now, for those of you who read the story, I'm going to not dwell on explaining everything to you. I'm pretty sure it's pretty much straightforward. It's a romance story, and you guys, I've said a few times how I like romance stories. I'm just going to point out a few things about it, a few things that I believe need to be pointed out about the story. Number one, it has that error that so many romance stories have nowadays, that the romance happens too fast, in my personal opinion. Now, I guess you could kind of take into consideration the fact that they've known each other, have a history together, and kind of put that into consideration. But they become mere friends in all of, two 2 days after meeting again. 2 days? I'm pretty sure it's 2 days, because, yeah, Trixie spends a night in the library, and then they wake up next morning, and that. So they become mere friends in 2 days, and they have sex that same day. That's a little too quick for my personal take, and I believe that is an issue a lot of people in the romance genre face, because I think it's because of the impatience of the audience. Now, the audience demand for instant gratification. The idea that the audience wants something. They don't want to see, months of lovey-dovey dating for characters, or between, between the characters. And I understand that. I mean, if you dwell too long on something, it does tend to get boring. But I would have liked to see a bit of extension. Even a time skip of some kind would have helped put this matter to ease in my mind. But again, like I said, it happened all too quickly, in my personal opinion. I'm gonna draw comparisons with Shirley's Garden a few times, just to kind of put into perspective. Shirley's Garden actually had a flashback and then a flash forward to what happened, so we know that it took her months to plan what she was going to do. So that's more of a spacing that I would like to see. But, you know what, that's not a deal breaker. So I guess we will continue on with this story. Oh yeah, one thing I noticed, for those of you who read the Klopp parts, one cool thing I kind of noticed about that is you could really see Unahim's, I don't want to say roots, because I don't know what kind of stories he started writing, but you can see Shirley's Garden in his Klopp fics, and that's in the sense of... a good grimdark is scary on multiple reasons. I'm sorry. Messages keep popping up because my friends are arguing about the logic behind Fallout Equestria. Yeah. Anyways. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I was talking about how Shirley... how you could see the roots of Shirley's Garden in it. Now, in order for a good grimdark to be scary, as I've said multiple times, it can't just be hack and slash, it has to have a psychological element behind it. And a good way to build psychological torture in a character... I'm sorry, I keep drawing comparisons with Shirley's Garden, I can't help it, I really like the fic. But when Silver Spoon and Diamond Tiara were hooked up to that machine, and Silver Spoon had to decide whether she was going to lose an eye in a most horrific way, or watch her friend be burned by acid... that psychological torment, and it was made very well because you could see, or no, you could hear her inner thoughts, what she was thinking, what she was going through. This hard decision. Am I going to put myself through this pain by pressing the button myself? I have to press the button in order to make myself feel this pain, in order to save my friend, or am I going to have to hear her scream? That psychological torment. And it works so well because you can see it from her perspective. Now, when in the Klopp scenes, you can see that, not in the psychological torment sense, of course, but in the sense that most Klopp fics focus on the physical aspect. I noticed a lot of Unahim, it did have physical, but a lot of it was emotional connection that the character felt between one another, what Trixie and Twilight felt between one another. I'm sure if you read it a few times, you could understand where I'm coming from. Like, I'm not saying that there's no physical stuff. There's actually quite a bit. But there is a lot of what the character is feeling, how this emotional connection feels to them, what it means to them. And I think that's awesome. Hey, way to take it and make it your own. Way to make it not as, cheap as I thought it would be. A few other points. I love the direction that the story took. In all honesty, the whole Trixie being broken down by Twilight in order to make her a better member of society, which in turn ends up breaking her mind as such. I thought Trixie's backstory, while it did fit her character, was neither too over the top, but also not like unrealistic, but also not too bland, I guess would be the best term. I thought it fit her perfectly. It made sense. I thought a disease that wiped an entire town was a little, maybe just a teensy bit too much. But, benefit of the doubt, I think in that scenario we can kind of give the person the benefit of the doubt, especially since, he at least gave a reason for it, and they tried. There was medicine that would heal. And it doesn't excuse Trixie's actions, and that's kind of an interesting thing. In most fics where Trixie becomes, a good character, you see that her past tries to excuse a lot of her actions and saying, oh, well, I was abused as a fool, so what I did was just because of that. This one doesn't really excuse it, it kind of explains it, which is interesting in of itself because it's unique. I hate the fact that in today's, culture, that we can't have an evil villain. We have to have, or no, not an evil villain. No, that's wrong term. We can't have a evil hero. We need to excuse our heroes' actions, make them 100% good. They can't have any flaw. They can't be an anti-hero. They have to be perfect. And I think that this kind of portrays her in a light that is not acceptable, but welcome. She's not just excusing her actions. She's saying, yes, I did a bad thing. This is why it happened. I'm sorry for what I did, but I'm not going to try to justify it. Which, like I said, I really appreciate. Yeah, so going back to the way that the story actually progressed, I had no idea that that was the direction the story was going to go, in all honesty. I was expecting some just weird fetishistic play. And not that there's none of that, but just I expected more of the story to be like that. I didn't expect the whole, the idea of the Twilight becoming mad with power and slowly breaking down her free will until it accumulates in a sort of reality shock when her closest, her mate, pretty much, is almost raped. Not even raped, she almost gives herself freely because she kind of told her to. And she just followed Twilight's orders blindly. And I really appreciate the fact that not only is Trixie's character fleshed out, but Twilight's character develops in a way that is not only is it I don't know if ambiguous is the right word, standalone, completely different to the show. Not only is her character developed in such a way that we've never even seen on the show, we see the character of Twilight becoming too smart, thinking that she is too smart and can handle anything. I remember she's yelling at Applejack, "You don't understand psychology, I know what I'm doing." And Applejack can see that, well, you've gone mad with power. You think that what you're doing is right, but I can see what you're doing is messing her up. And Unahim manages to portray that very nicely in the sense that, she doesn't seem crazy. She seems like she really wants to help Trixie, but she just doesn't see what she's doing as wrong because, hey, she's really smart. She knows what she's doing, right? So that was well done. I'm a sucker for a psychological story, which is why I'm practically gushing over this, even though I don't think I look like I am. I really enjoyed this story. I don't know. I read it a week and a half ago, so I'm just trying to remember. I know I should have touched up on it before this, but in all honesty, I don't know. I just wanted to get this video out sooner than later. So I think there was a few other things I wanted to mention. One was I don't know if the story was supposed to be sad at all. I remember Trixie, when she goes back to the town and remembering ponies and, that all that stuff was supposed to be, I guess, heartwarming. Remember, I don't feel that. I didn't care all that much. But there was one scene that I don't think for many people would have made you blink, but for me kind of, meant something. And that was when they go to the graveyard and they see Trixie's parents' tombstone. And it wasn't that scene, I didn't care, until she read the tombstone. And it said, what was it? Faithful parents until the end. Sorry. Faithful parents until the end, right? Yeah. So for some reason that struck a chord. I don't know what it was. I think it's the backstory behind it, the way that they were giving themselves sugar pills to make it seem like they were taking pills when in reality they were just giving the pills to their daughter. To say that they are willing to sacrifice their life for their daughter. I mean, most parents would do that. but faithful parents until the end. Until they, breathe their last breath. They put their daughter before themselves. It was powerful, I guess. I liked it. I thought it was a nice little touch. I mean, I would have loved it if the chapter had ended there. I mean, that would have been pretty cool, but, whatever. I'm glad it continued on. So, right, there was one more thing I wanted to mention. One thing that I thought was kind of funny that my mind instantly jumped to. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 chapters away from the end, but when Trixie's setting up her big show for her big finale, and, I'm not even really reviewing this. I'm just gushing over this story now that I think about it. It's great. I love it. I thought it was fantastic. I didn't see any flaw in it other than the ones that I mentioned. The first Klopp was undoubtedly, like I said, it was long. It was it took up most of the chapter, which I don't really like. But the other ones were spaced out nicely to the sense that, sure, the Klopp part was 2,000 words, but the entire chapter was 5,000, so 3,000 of it was mostly story, so that's fine. But yeah, I just realized as I'm talking, I'm just talking about the story that I'm not even reviewing it. I'm just saying how much I liked it. It was great. There was after my last review, I did Kept in the Dark last, right? Oh, no, I did. Yeah, I did Kept in the Dark last, and I said, yeah, I like reading a good story once in a while, and then this comes along. It's fantastic. I love it. And then, Shadow said, what do you think of this fic? And I said, wow, thanks for ruining my day. Anyways. Sorry. So, yeah, there was one final thing I wanted to talk about that I thought was really funny. When Trixie was setting up her final scene and all that stuff, and she's talking about it, she never really mentioned what she was planning on doing. And for some people it might have been obvious. For me it wasn't. But because the first thing that jumped into my head was that all of this was a ruse, and that Trixie was about to go grimdark on Twilight in front of the entire town. She was going to string her up Hannibal Lecter style on her friggin', what are they? She doesn't have a cabin, it's a trailer or whatever. On the stage. Thank you. On the stage. She was going to just string her up on there and just, be crazy stuff. I thought that would have been funny. Just as an ending. Just, haha, you guys thought this was a nice story, and then just grimdark. Oh, wow. But I don't know why that was the first thing that came into my head. I think I was still high on Shirley's Garden. The flowers there or whatever. But, yeah. I just thought that was interesting. It made me chuckle when I thought about it, because I actually said out loud to myself, oh no, this is not where it's going. But yeah, I thought the story was fantastic. I mean, thank you, Super Optimistic, for showing me that. I remember reading it, but I don't remember getting too far into it, and I can't remember why. I think it was mostly because of, maybe just how quick everything evolved at the beginning, but I made a promise to read through it. So, that was awesome. So if you guys haven't checked it out already, I barely scratched the surface. I barely touched on how well put together it is, how good the characters meld, how, some characters pop in and out. The relationship between Trixie and Spike, the relationship between Trixie and the townspeople, the way that she becomes, her journey from a cocky showmare to a subservient maid to, a more of a socially acceptable person. The way that she spirals downwards, and all because of the mare she loves. And I can't even begin to describe that here. So if you haven't read the story and just wanted to hear me talk, I really suggest you do it, or at least put it on your read later list, because you won't regret it, I promise. Unless you, for some reason, that you despise Klopp. I mean, there are non-Klopp chapters, so you can just do that one instead, which kind of has every area of expertise or every area covered there. If you don't like Klopp, you can read it. You can still read the story. But I think that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Have a fantastic day. I guess I'll talk to you later.